And then he looked at me. There's always a chance. It's just a question whether it's for you. So I found the email address of the collaboration spokesperson.
Mm.
And I wrote a small email message. It said, "Dear Mr. Breidenbach." Now, being a German, I even misspelled his name. So I didn't call him Breidenbach, but Breitenbach. I'm a graduate student from the University of Hamburg. I didn't write, I'm slightly drunk, but so I said, I worked on the charm experiment, neutrino nucleon scattering. I worked on the calorimetry and on software. And I learned about your detector design and about your project, and I thought it was very interesting, and I was wondering whether there are any postdoc positions available. Now, perhaps I'm the first one who did that. I don't know. Now this is completely normal because you get hundreds of emails, but at that time you got 2 a week or something. So I sent this email. And the next morning, I waited for 2 hours and then I drove home after. So it was about 2, I was at home. CERN cafeteria was open 24 hours that time. And so then the next morning when I woke up, I thought, this was probably not a good idea. But so what? You don't have a chance for something like this anyhow. And then the next day, I got an email from a guy called Rafe Schindler. And he said, yes, indeed, we are looking for a postdoc for the calorimeter. And you can apply for this position. But we would like to have a pre-interview with you. We understand that you are right now, that you are at DAISY for the University of Hamburg, DAISY, German Electron Synchrotron. It's in one of the parts of Hamburg, northwest. And at the moment, there is a colleague of us who is working there with a group.
Ah, I see.
Richard Taylor. And we asked him, and he would be willing to interview you. So, okay, so I would go back to Hamburg 2 days later. And when I was in Hamburg, I called there, got his secretary. And she said, yeah, I will ask him. And I got an appointment with Richard Taylor. Little me had absolutely no idea who Dick Taylor was at the time. And he hadn't gotten his Nobel Prize yet. And I had no idea who he was. And he was just some guy. And it wasn't as easy then because the internet was just being invented, but there was no World Wide Web where you could Google somebody and find out who he is. So he was just a colleague from Slack. So I went over there. And this was a huge, big guy who looked belligerently. And so very impressive personality. As I later learned, he's the only one who got so annoyed by a talk of somebody that he actually took one of the chairs in the meeting room and threw it against the wall because he was just annoyed. So I had this interview with him, and he asked me sort of about what I was doing and the thing and why I wanted to go there and what interested me. And amongst others, I said, yeah, I've only been doing software so far because at CERN, they wouldn't let a woman do any hardware. They really rejected if I tried to do something. And then he asked me at the very end, okay, do you plan to stay in science? And I said, yes, if there is a chance. And then he looked at me. There's always a chance. It's just a question whether it's for you. So shy little me, I didn't have much to say to that. And I was like 5 minutes later after I was out, I was mad at myself for not having said anything. So I couldn't sleep the whole bloody night. I mean, it was just surprised. So then the next morning I called. Yeah. Yeah, he was 20 years older by then. So the next morning after I got to Daisy, I immediately called the secretary and asked to talk to the guy. He had said at the beginning of the interview that if it went well, I would be invited for an interview at Stanford. But this question hadn't been answered on this evening. So I had him on the phone, and I mean, I almost felt him laughing through the phone. And I said two things. First, if there is a chance, then it will be for me. And the second, I want to know whether I get an interview. And he was then laughing openly and said, yes, you get an interview. And I asked the secretary here to send you the email at Stanford for arranging for the interview. Now, I swear, if I hadn't called on that morning, I would have never heard from them again.
Oh, why is that?
Because it was his test.
Mm.
Later, I had the office right across from him, and I know how he operated. They did that at Stanford. And as you know, I somehow, I mean, first I was mad, but then later I thought, yeah, it's probably the right thing to do. It's a good test. If you want it, you have to fight for it.
Right.
And if you don't and just wait, tough luck. So much later, I mean, I had the office across from him at Stanford, so we talked, and I also know, I told him, you know, you almost got me off guard. You know, you got me off guard. And he told me, well, this is the way that you select people who can make it.
Interesting.
So then I got an interview in February of 1986.